Been a while since doing Zooms. I've retired it and I'm back in school speaking to students because the human element will never be replaced. I wish I could be there in person to address you. Do forgive my voice. I made a commitment to being on this webinar today, but I also had a commitment to being in the province of Alberta, and I flew in at 6:30 this morning with a few hours of sleep, but my voice will eventually catch up to me. But I never miss an opportunity to speak to parents. Over the past 33 years of my life, I have dedicated to information technology and cyber. And about 13 years ago now, at my daughter's school, I got into a conversation with the principal as to why kids were getting in trouble using technology. And so I responded to him by saying, because parents have given their kids too much technology at a young age. So he asked me as a favor, hey, could you speak to them, put something together? I love my daughter's principal. I said, yeah, no problem. I'll be honest. It wasn't the most comfortable because at that point I was speaking to CFOs and CEOs, boring people. And then when I got to speak to kids, I thought, well, how will they receive this message with my style? Well, something happened because as of that favor, I've now had the pleasure of speaking in person to 910,000 students in 6 provinces and 6 states, 95,000 more virtually, along with the OPP, the RCMP, Canada Border Services, and the Department of National Defense. I'll be honest, when I speak to those individuals, it has a cool factor to it. When I speak to students, I feel rewarded. And the reason I say that is because during my time with kids, I deliver facts. In my presentation, no threats, no fear, no scare tactics, only facts. And after I give them facts, I give them directives based on those facts. So what's the good news? Everyone hears the exact same words come out of my mouth. What's the better news? Most make good choices. What's the sad news? Well, statistically, a small percentage will make those good choices because they'll choose to ignore the message. They think I'm trying to scare them. I'm trying to take away their fun. Trust me, having spoken to almost 1 million kids in person, you understand your audience. And you know that a lot will be receptive to it, but we're always going to have a small percentage of the society that just won't. What does my day to school look like? Well, if I'm visiting an elementary school, I normally speak to grade 4, 5, 6s for about 45 minutes, and I take their questions. They're filled with questions. I love their questions. Then I speak to the 7, 8s. That is the intense version of the presentation. I take a long break. I come back in the evening, and I speak to parents. That is a complete day at a school. If it's high school, it's normally just high school students. On the odd occasion, I will do the high school parents as well, provided I'm speaking to the kids, because my objective is to get through to the children and then hopefully impact the parents later on. This year, I added an additional option. So I created a presentation that's pre-recorded for grade 1, 2, and 3. When a school brings me in, it's a gift to them. I want them to watch it in the classroom. It's 30 minutes. It can be watched at the pace of the teachers and the students because, they learn differently. It can be watched throughout the whole day. But now I also have my grade 4, 5, 6 session virtually pre-recorded for grade 4s and 5s if the school thinks that they will learn better in the classroom at a slower pace because I'm a fast-paced speaker. Now, are kids listening to the presentation? My belief it is, because I'll show you what some of them do. This presentation today is for information purposes only. I'm not telling you or instructing you to do anything. I'm strongly suggesting we make some simple basic choices to help keep our kids safe online. Please do not audio or video record the presentation. May take as many notes as you like, but this presentation is because you made the effort to be here today. Parents, I love technology. I don't talk about how great technology is. I will often talk about the risks associated with the technology you've given your child. Here's the thing. When you understand risks, you will absolutely appreciate benefits. So in the world of cyber, we know there are tremendous risks to technology, but when you understand it, the benefits that we all hear about, you'll be thankful that you understood the risks. In the world I live in, with every cyber parent I know, every cyber human I know that doesn't have kids, but maybe they have a niece, they have a nephew, they have good friends who have kids. There's one golden rule that we will share amongst everybody. Now, we didn't collude. We didn't strategize. We call this common sense. And that one golden rule, excuse me, is that you will not permit any form of technology in your child's bedroom. Computers, tablets, phones do not belong in your child's bedroom at home. Your child has a wonderful gift. It's called curiosity. But curiosity in their bedroom by themselves with the door closed, connected to the internet, is the recipe for danger. If you can leave this shortened session today and you applied one thing, which is our kids' bedrooms is a tech-free zone for safety reasons and for other reasons as well. But let's just go safety. The difference will be impacted starting today. You wait till tomorrow or the next day, something can occur until then. Make the change as soon as you're done this webinar. Now, you might be wondering, how did we get into this situation to start with? This slide is what I call too much too soon. Because what we've done is we've given them far too much technology at a young age. Now, for the record, the youngest I've spoken to in person is grade 3. And what I love doing with grade 4, 5, 6s and the odd grade 3s is they tell me a lot about themselves as we start the presentation. So when I see kids in grade 3 saying they have a smartphone, we have a concern. On that smartphone is mobile data. Big concern. At home, that smartphone, tablet, or computer definitely doesn't have any restrictions on Wi-Fi. Huge concern. And do you know that kids as young as grade 3 are on social media platforms they're not allowed to be on? Now, I know you're going to say, Paul, I know them younger than grade 3 on these platforms, and I know you are correct. But I have to give you the data I've collected over 13 years. So how do we solve this problem? Well, it takes a lot of work, but it's actually easy to do. Why do I say it's a lot of work then? Because of the emotional response to you making some changes. So let me tell you how to address this screen right here. Number 1, no technology in the bedroom. Simple, right? 2, smartphones, middle 10th of grade 8. 3, no social media until you are at least 13 years of age, the terms predicated by COPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. You know what the challenge parents get is? When you say to your child, you're not getting a phone until middle 10th of grade 8 or when you start high school, your child will respond to you with, but I'm the only one without it. And parents, they are not. What about social media? But mom, how am I going to speak to my friends? You see, I'm the only one without it, and how am I going to speak to my friend arguments? Those are guilt trips. And parents fall for those guilt trips because they feel their child will be isolated, excluded. Now, I'm not a parenting expert, I'm not a therapist, but real human interaction and friendships isn't predicated on if you have a smartphone or a social media platform. They're developed because people respect each other, whether they have something or not, as human beings. So when I hear the arguments that the child feels isolated and left out, we need to teach them to become leaders, not followers. But most importantly, we need to teach them to develop real human friendships, and that the friendships are not predicated on status and what they have. But let me give you some real-time data, because you might be wondering, well, how young are these kids when they get it? As I just stated at the beginning, I just flew in this morning from Alberta, and I spoke to 4 cities, and I walked into 6 schools. Now, this is actually a little unfair because I was there on November 11th, Remembrance Day, where I spoke to a hockey club. But I don't count that because these were all teenagers with their parents. But when I walked into these schools, there were kids in grade 4, 5, 6. Here's what I gathered from this week. Now, this is the rolling average just from this week. 2/3 of the kids admitted to using tech in the bedroom. That's a concern. Now, if there's one positive, it's down from my rolling average of last year. Unfortunately, it's 66% too high. Smartphones. Half the kids I spoke to this week have smartphones. What was interesting about that number is that I went to actually one school, about a quarter of the kids have smartphones. The day after, in an affluent part of the Calgary area, 3/4 of the kids had it. And then the other schools was a mix. So my numbers came up to about 50% of them. Now, why do kids in grade 3, 4, 5, 6 have smartphones? That's a debate we can have, and I've got data. Social media, just under half of them admitted to using Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. But the thing is, not one of them is allowed to be on it. The number one way kids get bullied, offended, threatened, insulted online is through social media they're not allowed to be on. What happens when a child gets bullied, offended, threatened? Well, parents come running to school. They will demand that the principal fix the problem. Will your principal help you? Of course they will. They care tremendously about your children. But I need to remind you, parents, that teachers and principals and coaches should not be encouraging children to open up social media platforms and violating terms of service because of a personal theory belief that had something to do with education. You're asking kids to go against a terms of service stating what age they need to be. And then what happens when they get on there? By breaking those rules, something happens. Well, where's the finger being pointed now? Okay, we know 99% of the educators won't do that. So we also know that the responsibility starts with parents, guardians, and caregivers. So how can I address this slide over here to help you? Simple. Number one, no technology in the bedroom. Big scenario for online safety. Two, smartphones, middle to end of grade 8, unless medically required. Three, no social media until at least the age of 13. Now, if you and I are friends and you're saying, well, what should the answer be? Is 13 the right answer, Paul? I would say no. But I can't instill my values and beliefs in a presentation because as a cyber guy, we come with hard data and then provide guidance based on that data. But we also have to look at the terms of service. And TOS for social media is 13. I was in Quebec 2 weeks ago, it's 14. But for us that we're talking here today, it's 13. I have to go on that. If you and I are friends, I could look at every social media platform out there and give you a different age, objectively based on what I've researched and what I'm subjected to, because I do subject myself for 15 minutes per day on the 3 major platforms. It's important to be able to educate properly. And so Monday to Friday, I will dedicate that time and I will always keep up to date so I can update parents, guardians, caregivers, and most importantly, kids. So what are the 3 pillars of online safety? I've said this for 13 years. This is the foundation. No technology in the bedroom. This is the easiest thing you can do. No social media till 13. That could be your challenge, but you can overcome it for sure. And no smartphone until end of grade 8. If parents applied the 3 pillars, I'm going to give you a factual bit of information. The ability for a child to be hurt, cyberbullied, or witness inappropriate content just dropped like a rock. Why? Because the data shows that if you give them too much too soon, they're exposed to that stuff too soon. And subsequently, how they are processing it and how they respond to it is the negative part. Online safety is easily addressable when parents are invested and apply some simple rules. The constant question I get is, what about screen time? I will share this with you. There's no answer to screen time. All the studies are effectively inconclusive. So here's what I've done. I came up with a screen time strategy based on the inconclusive studies. And the best part for you, at the end, when you write down my Facebook page, go to my page and watch my video. It's about 12 minutes long on screen time. Here's how I break it down. I'll give you a summary of what you're going to watch. 1/3 of their day, school screen time. 1/3 of their day, consumption screen time. That is playing games, watching TV, their kids, they're allowed to give them that. The last third of their day, coding, blogging, app development, robotics, podcasting. That is what I call creation screen time. When I speak to your grade 4, 5, 6s, they are told at the end of my presentation all the amazing things they can do online. You should see their faces light up. You should see the inspiration. Some are still upset because they were told no social media. But the others who are getting it are saying, okay, this is cool. I can make a podcast. I can open up a website. I can create a computer program. I can get a robotics. I can make that robot do something. Now I've shifted their thinking to be safe. So If you came back to me and said, Paul, my kid is spending a lot of time on the creation side of it, you know what I would say? You're welcome, because that's positive screen time. Because there's no defined number to screen time, let's just be real. 8 hours a day, I think we have a problem. 3.5, 4 hours a day, which you and I can debate is a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I think it is for a little kid. But if you divide it into those three segments, okay? If you divide it into those three segments and you incorporate walking the dog, making dinner, doing chores, cutting the grass, all that stuff, right? Because it's not a consecutive amount of screen time, that's the first positive. And because only one of the three is consuming, one is learning, one is creating, screen time does not have to be looked at as negative, parents. We can make this work. And this strategy that I shared with you, which again, you'll watch on my Facebook page, you need to be involved. Don't expect your child to do it. You need to be invested. This is a discipline. Get them into that discipline, but you need to support them along the way. BYOD. Remember from its inception till today? Why is this part of online safety? Because as we got deeper into bringing smartphones into schools, we saw a dramatic increase, bullying, vaping, making TikToks in the bathroom, secretly recording people in class. From the beginning of the inception of BYOD, I was the only speaker walking into schools in North America, making one statement: away for the day. When you come to school, put your phone away until instructed with restriction or until the end of the day. When introduced to schools, BYOD was 21st century education. It's the future. If they don't have it, they're going to fail. We need to teach them how to use it. And the best one I heard was, we need to teach them to self-regulate. Do you know if an adult can't regulate on a phone? The idea of regulating kids on a phone was a complete failure in messaging. We were expecting kids to put a phone on the table, pay attention to their teacher, and when the notifications went off, leave it alone. You okay? You don't have to touch it. No. Why do I say away for the day? I've got data. So you were given theories, correct? I've got data. Every school who went away for the day after my presentation, and even pre-COVID, have reported increased marks, increased human interaction, decreased drama, decreased bullying. I've addressed online safety to those who listened prior to the Ministry of Education implementing the new policy, which, by the way, I'm very vocal about, and you can see my position on my Facebook page. But why? Is there another reason that I was away for the day? Well, look what teachers were saying all the time during BYOD. This was on Twitter. What do you say the most every day? And teachers were saying, put your phones away, put your phones. So what we learned was it took away from their education. And for those teachers listening to me, nothing is going to replace you. You're an amazing human being. Not ChatGPT, not an iPhone 16 Pro Max, not a Google Chromebook. They need you. They need human interaction. If COVID taught us anything, is that we cannot effectively educate through a screen. December of 2020, I struggled speaking to students while wearing a mask and looking at a group of students because I was the first person back in school. And I said, the second you give me permission, I will be back in there because I need to see eyes. And while I was educating on screens, I know I was in a classroom, I know people were listening. It just didn't have the effect. Why? They need humanity. And I learned that. And that's why when I got the opportunity to be back in with all the struggles, I did it. And so my point in saying that is those kids need those teachers. And technology can be an educational assistant. But when you introduce it with a lot of theories, we had an increase in issues regarding online safety and bullying. Parents, please remind your child you own the phone that they are using. Some kids think they own phones. And then when I speak to them, they identify that, oh, right, I don't. Because I go through the whole scenario of how a phone is acquired with them. And by the time I'm done with kids, they are now aware that a phone is a privilege. It's not a right. And with privileges will come rules, guidelines, and consequences. So remind your child that a phone is your property and it's on loan to them, but that their actions not only impact them, parents, it actually impacts you during a police investigation. Now, because you own the phone, I confidently know you're reading your children's texts, right? As a responsible parent. And you might say, but what about their privacy? And what you'll come up with a bunch of reasons as to why you're afraid to. I'm asking you sincerely, from a person who's helped parents in tears because of something that happened online, which could have been prevented if parents were involved in what was occurring. Please make sure you're reading your kids' texts and you're involved. You might be saying, wait a minute, my kid has an iPad. That's okay. Oh, my kid has an old iPod. That's okay. Remember that any device connected to a router, you know where routers are, right? They're in every one of your schools, cafes, hotels, airports. You walk down a street and your phone will pick up routers. And if that iPad with no cellular data or that Android tablet with no cellular data picks up a signal, they can make a phone call, text, email, surf the web. That's why these devices don't belong in their bedrooms at home, because they're fully functional communications tools. So yes, they can still text, they can still make phone calls, and that's why you need to be aware. So parents, I'm going to ask you, please write down these two websites, okay? As I stated, you're reading your kids' text, but you may not understand what your child is communicating. Netlingo.com is the most extensive database on the internet of texting language. So if you want to decode bullying, threats, harassment, discrimination, all you need to do is go to NetLingo and you'll be able to look, type, decode. But you also need to understand what emojis mean. And you might be saying, but yeah, Paul, they're cute and they're fun. Sure they are. But some are also sexual, threatening, deal narcotics, and of course, vaping. Vaping is a huge piece on emojis because parents don't get it. When you read your kids' text, you'll be able to now understand the context of communication because you've decoded the texting language and you've decoded the emojis. And it's so critical for online safety that you understand what the signs are that could lead to bullying, threats, harassment, discrimination, racism. And that's why you're reading your kids' text. Now, earlier I said, what about my kids' privacy? I would really like to put this argument to rest. I'm going to share with you the highlights of a story given to me by a former police officer in Toronto who saw me as a police officer. I made a video out of this because it was so powerful, but I'm going to give you the reasons why you go through your kids' phones. I got an email from an ex-police officer who saw me when he was a police officer. And he said, Paul, I'm going through my 14-year-old daughter's phone and I found some red flags. Well, we actually got on the phone. I want to hear what these red flags were. He read them off to me. I went, okay, that's serious. You're doing great. Keep doing it. And he shared with me the struggle of how his daughter was responding to him because he was doing it. But that's his job. He's a dad, right? Okay. A couple of weeks later, get an email. Problem solved. I convinced my child that who she was allegedly speaking to wasn't who they claimed to be. He was kind enough to share with me all the data he collected. Now, because he's a police officer, he was detailed. So let's start off with a few red flags. I love red flags. Red flag number one. Allegedly, his daughter was speaking to a 16-year-old hockey player in Saskatchewan who said, hey, I will pay for you to come and see me play hockey. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Red flag number two. 2 days later, this person that was first in Saskatchewan is now down the road from her to school in Toronto. Wait a second. You went from Saskatchewan to Ontario? You see, groomers don't have one victim. They have multiple. And this groomer was mixing up his victims. So dad said, okay, give me his phone number. I want to talk to this kid. Yeah, they don't have phone numbers. Only Snapchat. He said, fine, let's put the person on the video. Let's conference. Now, why don't groomers use video when AI is so good that I can disguise myself and convince you to believe whoever I want you to believe I am? Because AI isn't perfect. And there's a way to figure out if someone is real or not. So because they know, a lot of people know that? No. He was getting upset because his daughter wasn't responding in a timely manner. Now, I don't want to upset you, but there is a guide on, and a hard place to find on the internet on how to manipulate kids. And one of the chapters is You must need constant communication with the victim, because if there's a gap, it could be instilling doubt into the relationship. This is right out of the book. This one's interesting. Made up a story about his father passing away. In the book, gain empathy from your victim. So when I follow groomers online, one thing that I notice on their Instagram bio is, rest in peace, Dad, I miss you. Anyways, at the end of it, with all the data he collected, his daughter is in a good place because he wasn't afraid of, what about my child's privacy? And you know what a really great story to end this off with is? I met his daughter by chance at a school that I was speaking at. She came up to me and introduced herself to me, and we had a wonderful conversation about how her dad was instrumental in saving her. But you know what's even better about this story? She is trying to help other kids. So from going from a tense situation where she really didn't like him to understanding and then to helping, and that how I was part of hearing the story and now being able to share the story and seeing the child, to me, if you believe it or not, that's called fate. And it's something that I'm able and proud to share every night with my parent audience, to say, this is why you go through your kid's phone, because if you care about their online safety, you must do it. We're not getting into cyberbullying today, but I will tell you this: when I speak to grade 4s to 12s, there are 2 different deliveries on cyberbullying. The message is very simple. It's very consistent. We do not tolerate forms of threats, harassment, discrimination, racism, bullying online. I instruct them on how to deal with it. I instruct them how to seek out help without judgment, shame, or embarrassment. And most importantly, I tell them, you will be supported by that adult in your life. But I also remind kids, if you don't speak out, we can't help you. And if you don't speak out, it'll affect your sleep, appetite, schoolwork, friendships, and family. And if you don't speak out, the bully gets away with it. So my message every day is to empower kids, but I want data. I want evidence. Show it to a teacher, principal, parent, someone you trust, and say, I need help. What I don't talk about with the younger kids is the Criminal Code of Canada. But they're made aware that the day they turn 12, they're criminally chargeable by law, and cyberbullying is covered in the Criminal Code. Now, with grade 7s to 12s, I actually show them some of the charges that can be laid under the Criminal Code. Because remember, parents, a suspension or expulsion is a school issue. But a principal is obligated that if what is being said and done in the school exceeds their boundaries, they must hand it over to the police. So when the police come in, the child could be dealing with a suspension, expulsion, and potentially a criminal charge. My objective is to make sure they never go down this path, to be loving, caring, and respectful to one another. But they also need to know the truth, that there's consequence of action should you be that mean kid. If you're wondering why social media is 13, read the terms of service. And every social media platform is predicated on COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which states we do not collect data from kids under the age of 13. Look at every social media platform. The wording is, you must be 13. Some of the arguments I get from kids, well, no, you need to be 12 to download the app off the App Store. They are correct. But you need to be 13 to use it. So yeah, you can have it sitting there. I wouldn't, but you could have it. You just can't use it until you're 13. We can't get into all the social media platforms today. I'm sorry. We just don't have the time. The reason I'm addressing it briefly, the number one way kids get bullied, offended, threatened, insulted online are through the social media platforms they're not to be on. Online safety starts with respecting the rules of these platforms. I addressed it earlier on. I'm recapping it now. I also want to address Bill C-63. Regretfully, we have a lot of parents who think that if this bill comes to pass, the solution to bullying has been addressed. That is a false belief. I was at a presentation in Ottawa, and you know what I ask parents every night since Bill C-63 was introduced? Hey, how many of you have read all 104 pages of it? Every night, not one parent puts up their hand. They think it's a solution, but they've never read it. But one night in Ottawa, lady front row put up her hand. I said, Miss, you read all 104 pages? And then it was identified that she had a connection to the Justice Department. I thought, oh my goodness, you're here. So I asked her, under the Online Harms Act for kids, Half of it already exists. She acknowledged yes. Therein lies the problem, because we're not enforcing what currently exists. So, do I have a belief C63 will pass? I'm torn. One side says no. One side says yes. And then the side that says yes also says that it might be shot down by the Supreme Court. But let's go with the premise that it was passed. If Bill C63 is passed, bullying will still occur. Extortion, sextortion will still occur. Threats, harassment, discrimination will still occur. So what's going to happen is we're going to be responsive to a situation because we can never be proactive. So my message every night to parents on C63, there are two things that protect our children. The proper education of our children. And I say, thank you for allowing me to speak to your kids and educate them. And number two, the investment you've made into your child's life so you understand it. Those are the two things, parents. Nothing else. Education, constant communication, and relationship. And we need that because government intervention, government oversight is not going to change anything. Online gaming and online safety. Parents, write down these rules. Number one, before you buy your child any game, visit this website and now review what the website is saying about the game. Okay? People get paid to play games and come up with a synopsis. And at the ESRB, that's their job. And then after they play the games, they come up with a rating. The ratings are E for everyone, T for teenager, M 17, which I know you would never bring into your home. The ratings must be respected. Number two, effective today, Xbox, PlayStation, Wii, Switch, gaming consoles are all out of the bedroom. Last year, I noticed an increase in kids coming to school sleep deprived. And when I saw it, either in the hallway or walking into school, I would quiz all the principals. Number one reason, online gaming. They need a good night's sleep. Remove that ability. Number three, parents, can you please recite this to your child? Friends are not found made online. I show this slide to grade 4, 5s, and 6s because they use the word friend for everything. Therein lies a concern. So I'll give you a scenario. A kid's playing a game, a chat box appears. Now they shouldn't be talking. Instinctively, they do. Hey, what's up? Not much. You, what's up? Parents walk by and they say, oh, who are you talking to? By default, the child says, oh, that's a friend. That's not a friend. Now, where I get your grade 4, 5, 6s, I'm going to give you one example of the 4 I give them. After this slide, I show them images created using artificial intelligence. And I say, looks pretty real, right? No. Even though it looks real, it's fake. And then I show them how it can be animated. And now their eyes are opening up. Wait a minute, that's a fake. Yeah, it is. But AI is so good now, you can animate a fake image. And so our children have a tendency to look and assume. We are now at a point in their lives where they need to look and process, because you know as well as I do, as great as AI is, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So when you critically analyze an image, which takes work, and our kids, even adults don't want to put that work in, you'll know there's something off about that picture. And so in my new delivery to students when it comes to AI and with the younger group, they learn to critically analyze photos. Now, finally, you need to set a firm time limit. This is so important. I'm not allowed to speak about gaming addiction because I have to stay in my lane as a cyber guy. I once asked someone who dealt with gaming addiction, can you become addicted playing 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day? And the individual stated, no data to back it up. So do you know why it's a thing? 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day? Of course it's a thing. But with a firm time restriction, because I believe in online gaming. Parents, you know why I'm here? Because I was a kid, I was making games. I was coding every Sunday with my friend's house. Remember these things called discs? We had thousands of these things. Cost us a lot of money to buy. I'm here because I was a guy making games. I got a career because of it. So I do support it with a limited amount of time, okay? Because online safety on games is something you better take seriously. We're going to end off, but I want to give you one more tip. our teenagers are starting to shop online younger and younger and younger. I love showing this next slide to grade 7s to 12s. In my grade 7 to 12 presentation, for the first 45 minutes, you can hear a pin drop. When I show this, that's when the mumbling starts. Why? Because I'm already too late. And so I tell them why we shouldn't be shopping on these platforms. And when it comes to online safety, the data they give away in return for the inexpensive product they can't ship to their home is absolutely not worth it. But if you see me in the evening at a school, if your kids saw me, they'll get all the reasons why we avoid these types of platforms. Earlier, I said, hey, are kids listening to my message? Take a look at from a school in September in your board. This is from John Wanless. You see those handwritten notes? Those are grade 4s. So my message works. Yes, I deliver a strong message. I'm very direct in delivery, but we have a connection. It's been my claim to fame for 13 years, and I love doing it. So if I have benefited you today, I'm thankful. If I can benefit your kids and your parents at their school, just take note of where you can reach me. If you want me to visit your school, visit my website, please. If you want to keep up with me on a daily basis, please share my Facebook page with all of your family and friends and parents. I will update you every day as a parent with a child technology. Hey, go to my Facebook page over the past week. We'll talk about Taylor Swift tickets and how people are getting scammed. Like I'm always doing something to help you guys out. Instagram is just for pictures. And X, I love it for politics. It's just far too toxic. So I brag about where I am when it comes to X. That's pretty much the extent of it. But my daily engagement is on my Facebook page where we can talk to each other, engage with each other. And I can share where I'm going to be, schools that have opened up my presentation. So all that. All right. I know I've gone a little overtime and I need to have time for questions and I want to respect your time. So if you have questions, by all means, go to the chat box, type it in. Let me open it up and let me just see if anybody's typing questions besides the fact that you can hear me, which was great. Thank you. But if you have any questions, please ask. I'll be back in about 30 seconds. I just need to put some water in my system. I think you guys are also able to turn on your camera and your microphone if you want to ask a question without typing it in. Alana, thanks, Paul. Always love hearing your talks. Thank you, Alana. I appreciate that. I know I didn't get as in depth today as you would normally have heard, but I had time restrictions. I have content restrictions. So, but thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So let's wrap it up. Sincere thanks to the board for inviting me to speak today. Again, I apologize about my voice. 5 consecutive days of speaking combined with a red-eye flight takes its toll on you. But like I said earlier, I will always be there to deliver to parents. Yes, even on the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you again.